Folks, happy Memorial Day. We're here after a little bit of technical difficulty yesterday, but hey, we ended up having more scores to report today anyway. Memorial Day, look at that lid I got on right there. You know who that lid is, guys? Brian, I bet you do.
Kankakee Valley.
What's that?
Kankakee Valley, right?
That's right, Kankakee Valley. I think there was three schools that had the flag theme. That I had them. Kankakee Valley had Marquette Catholic, another northern school there, had the red, white, and blue stripes, and then there was American Legion flag. I think it was Post. It was the South Bend Post up there, I think it was, that had that American flag theme. So had to do something for Memorial Day, and we always tip our caps to those who serve. Of course, to the families who've lost those in the line of duty, we definitely tip a cap to you, and hearts and prayers out to you as well. Glad to have Brian Jennings back with us, and Brian, let's talk to you here for a little bit before we get into scores. You've got a new stage in your career and life ahead of you. Tell us about your coaching and what's forward for Brian Jennings.
Well, I decided after the season that this would have been my last year. Actually, I decided at mid-season that this would be it. I just felt like it was the right time. It had been a long time coming. 27 years is a long time in this business, and I love it. I love being on the field. I love the competition, but it's just the grind of the off season and everything else. And I just felt like it was time to take a step back. My assistant, who I've had for 14 years, Drew Martin, who takes care of our facility and handles our off season weight program, things like that. He's moving. Him and his wife are moving to a new location down by Purdue. She got a job on campus. So between that and the grind of coaching, and then obviously my broadcasting is starting to take off a little bit, I just felt like it was the right time to step away. And obviously I still want to be around the game, and I will be, and I still want to be involved in the Coaches Association and things like that. But from a coaching standpoint, I just decided that this would be a good time to step away, let some young guy come in, take over Griffith, and hopefully take us to a next level, to another level.
When did when did you start at Griffith?
My first season was back in '99. That was my first season there, my first spring coaching there. Spent 24 great years there coaching baseball. Been extremely fortunate to be there as long as I have been in today's society. I'm the assistant principal now, so I work for a great administration, great school board. It's a great community, and I've had a ton of support. We've had a ton of support. We've had great coaches. We've had great players come through. Great support from the school and from the community. A great booster club. It was a perfect fit for me. And when I got there back in '99, I was just a young guy trying to figure out which way was up. And I just had a lot of support over the years, and it turned out to be a great place for all of us.
Well, and you have a lot of respect. As I talk to coaches around the state, I mean, your name just conjures respect, just for all your years of service. I know you're a Whiting High School grad, and your
Yep.
brother there coached football for many years. He's moving on to a different phase as well. And you guys have just your years of service to these kids. As a matter of fact, I remember I'm going back just one story of, I think it was a year ago. We were just texting back and forth. You may not even recall, and we were talking about Cody Hosey, and of course as an alumni under your coaching, and you said, well, I sometimes I hate to. I feel like I don't want to brag, or anything like that. I'm like, buddy, you need to. You've got Cody Hosey. That part you played in that phase of his life. Now, and leading to that contract that he signed, and leading to his future in the bigs is, that's a big deal. That's, I think the phrase I told you is, that's generational family tree changing kind of stuff. And that's what teachers do. That's what coaches do. Anybody who's, listened to me jabber on this show for years knows that I'm a fan of coaches and teachers as much as I am fans of baseball, just because of what they do for the young student athlete, and that sums it up the best. I mean, you're changing family trees, so your years of service to that are much appreciated by everybody up there in the region, and beyond. So, Coach, we're glad to have you on. I hope this is, I'll make it public that you have a standing invite to be on our show with all the broadcasting you do. And I joke about this all the time, too, all the knowledge that Steve has, and now I've got you on with all the broadcasting experience. I am the least qualified person to be doing the hosting and talking on this show right here, but we're going to wing it. But so let's go on and let's talk about some headlines. Just a few headlines before we get into the high school scores. We started talking about this the other day. We'll just kind of run through these real quick. Of course, we all saw Hunter Dobbins hit that bomb walk-off homer versus Miami. It was in the winner's bracket. Of course, now I believe, Steve, fill me in here, but Ball State is out. Who do we have left in college baseball in Indiana, Steve?
Notre Dame.
That's it.
Notre Dame is it. The pairings were made today for the 64-team D1 tournament. Notre Dame thought it was going to get a host site, but they didn't get to the championship game in the ACC. That might have hurt them. They will be going to the Statesboro Regional, Statesboro, Georgia. That's Georgia Southern is the host there. Notre Dame will play Texas Tech in their first game on Friday. Ball State went 5-2 against Central Michigan this year. Unfortunately, they lost the championship and the if necessary games were the two losses to Central Michigan. So Central Michigan got the automatic bid out of the Mid-American Conference, and Ball State won over 40 games, and but they're done. So Notre Dame's the only one left.
Well, and when we talked to, who are the two guys we talked to at the very beginning of of our start of baseball across Indiana, when we did the college season preview show, we talked to Mike Rooney of This Week in College Baseball, as well as the College Baseball podcast on Sirius XM, as well as the ABCA podcast host. Steve, help me out here.
Ryan Brownlee.
Ryan Brownlee, yeah. They both kind of said, and they called it. They said, the thing with the Ball State is they're in the MAC, and if they don't win it, if they don't win that tourney, their chances go down. So they called it. But
right. Ball State and Central Michigan were definitely the two best teams in the MAC, and then it kind of dropped off after that.
Well, we've got a lot of scores to get to here. A couple more just real quick fun ones here. Kevin Kiermaier had an inside-the-park home run this week. Josh Van Meter, we talked about this offline a little bit yesterday in attempt number 1 at today's show. And Josh Van Meter had a gun back in the day. He could throw pretty hard. He was on a state championship Norwell team. They weren't undefeated. We solved that. I was thinking they were on the undefeated
he would
team.
often, if he didn't start for Norwell, he would often come in as their closer. He would, he'd come from shortstop, and I saw that with my own eyes a time or two. So.
Well, one thing he said, I'm going to kind of plant the seed on something here. We've been working for a few months, interviewing all kinds of people for a Father's Day special that we're going to have. We got a really nice chance to interview Josh and his dad, talking about just all the different, that father-son relationship in baseball, and it was really interesting. But one I just throwing that out there on the side, but one thing Josh said is just talking about the road to the bigs is, you've got to be versatile. If you're just trying to be a DH, that's one spot. If you're, but if you can be versatile, then you've got so many other opportunities. And I'm not saying Josh Van Meter is ever going to be a pitcher in the bigs, but he is versatile. We all know that. He's a utility guy by definition.
We were just talking about versatility a little just before we went on the air, weren't we, Brian?
Yeah. Obviously, you got to be able to do more than one thing in this sport, and the more gloves that you carry in your bag, I try to tell my guys, even at the high school level, the more gloves you can carry in your bag, the better opportunities to get on the field. And, you look at a kid like Josh, obviously coming up, he was an outstanding high school player. We all knew about him in Indiana. He gets to the next level, and, and he has to continue to grind his way up there. So you have to hone your craft. One guy I think of right now, talking about guys who, have to be versatile, a guy like Mikey Brasso, who plays for the Brewers now. He's an Andrean graduate. I had an opportunity to be around him in the summer a few years back when he played summer ball with the Hammond Chiefs. And he's just a kid who was a grinder. You've got to be a grinder when you're in that spot, when you're in that role. You got to be ready to go every day. And, and for Josh Van Meter, if that means that he's got to be able to play 4 or 5 different positions in order to stay up there every day and get himself a pension, because that's obviously the ultimate goal. You want to play, you want to be around, you want to get yourself a pension. Then that's the best way to do it.
Who's because that team, the Andrean that you brought up, that Brasso was on, was that the same, the pitcher for the A's, Manaut. We had him
Yeah,
on
Sean
our show.
Manaut. He was a
Manaut.
couple of years ahead of.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean's with the Padres now. He was a couple of years ahead of Mikey, but they both played through the same travel ball system. I have an opportunity to know those kids really well, and they're great kids and very well respected in the area. And it's been cool to see those two guys get their opportunities in the big leagues.
I'll tell you, region baseball, I love it. You know, I'm a fan of it. The one more we're going to talk about Andre, and I want some more inside scoop on that. You talk about talent. 2 years apart, you've got two guys in the bigs. But we're going to talk about them here in a little bit. Just one more real quick story. This is kind of non-Indiana story, but Jackson Holliday, he's Oklahoma, plays for Oklahoma. New national record for college hits. I think it was 89.
It was high school.
Yeah, you're right. 89 hits, 685 average. The record was previously held by JT Realmuto, which is, of course, now is the catcher for the.
And this guy is a junior, so he has a chance to come back and break his own record next year.
Steve, let's look at these real quick before we get into scores. Who do you still have standing? I can tell you, for me, Riverton Park is out. They got beat by Lafayette Central Catholic. University is out. They got beat by Cascade. West Vigo, they're still in. Center Grove, they got beat by Fishers today. So I've got one team left, the Vikings of West Vigo. Who do you have left there, Steve?
Wapahani is still in. Homestead is still in with wins. Cowan and Western are playing right now.
Okay. It's kind of fun.
So I could go 4-0, or I could go 2-2, or.
Well, I went 0-2 today,
and then that's where I'm at as we speak.
Of those right there of our picks, and we said at the very beginning, like, high school kids, just turn it off and come back when we're done with this, because these predictions mean absolutely nothing. That's just fun stuff for us to talk about. But we both kind of said Center Grove. Oh, that's an easy pick, and I said, well, hold on. They've got to go through Mooresville. And if they go through Mooresville, and if they beat Mooresville, then they got to go through the winner of Castle, Jasper, Evansville North, all that down there in the semi-state area. So I said, even though they're a number one pick and everybody thinks, this is an easy pick for Hardy to throw out there, that might have been the weakest pick considering the road they had to go through. But that was a lot of fun. Let's go on and let's start talking some scores. First of all, let's go 1A here, guys, and as I talk about these are the scores that I have from Max Preps as of about 20 minutes ago. So if you see anything on here that has been updated, give me a shout. We're starting out at 1A. First of all, these are the 4 1A teams that will go to the South Bend, Washington Regional. That's, I believe, is regional number 14. I think that might be wrong. But it's Westville winner and Fremont winner, South Central of Union Mills winner, and Caston winner. Up there in the top left, that Westville bracket, you had Marquette Catholic over Couts, and Morgan Township over Westville. Then Morgan Township beat Marquette Catholic 16-4 to take home that title. Fremont is playing right now. Fremont and Bethany Christian are playing right now. That game started at 7. Let's go to the South Central sectional, and that was Oregon Davis versus South Central of Union Mills. And look at that, a 10-0 blanking by Union Mills. And I tell you what, this is one of those teams, and Brian, if you have any input on that, this is a Northwest team that, they started out really high. At one point, they reached number 1, then they fell a little bit. And I've always said those teams they lost to Portage when Portage was on an 8-game winning streak, and they lost to some other big teams up there in the region. And I said, you can't count these guys out. Tell us about South Central Union Mills, Brian.
Well, I'll tell you what, we played them actually this past Monday, a week ago tonight, and they came to our place. It was a last-minute game. The one thing about Zach Coulter, their coach, he's always looking for really good competition. He's trying to get his teams ready for the postseason. And, they've had, obviously you can see their record at 18-9. They've had quality losses. Like you said, they'll play big schools. We beat them pretty handily that night. But, again, at the end of the season, you're just looking to get guys on the field. You're looking to keep the rhythm going, that sort of thing. We didn't see their stud. They got a kid that's already committed to Kentucky who can pitch it and hit it. So they're a solid club, and I think obviously with him on the mound next week in a regional game, I'll take my chances over anybody there with him in the first ball game. Now, getting to the championship, that's a different level, because obviously at that point you've got to have two arms to win the regional. So, I would favor them to get to the regional championship. You look at the Westville ball game there, and obviously Morgan Township. Morgan Township, Couts, Westville, Oregon Davis, South Central, all those schools beat each other up in the Porter County Conference, in all those conferences that way. Even over down towards Caston and North White, they all play each other all the time. I think it's the Mid-American Conference, I think they call it, in that neck of the woods. So, they beat up on one another over. You look at Fremont as well, the same kind of thing. The records aren't necessarily the best, with the exception of Fremont, but at the same time, they're all familiar with one another over there. So, 1A baseball is very competitive, and once you get past that sectional round, it really becomes a situation there where you've got to have a couple of arms. Sometimes you need three arms to get out of a regional, and it should shape up as a very good one at South Bend.
Well, I'll tell you, that Fremont right there, that's their Northeast Corner Conference. They really turned it around this year. I believe they're either NECC or Northeast 8. I think they're NECC. But either way, Garrett, who lost today, but the two or three teams right there around 20 wins. So we're potentially looking at, with South Central's win today, they're 19-9. Morgan Township would be 16-8. Fremont, if they win, would be 22-8, and Caston would be 19, and Caston is 19-6. So that's three right there around 20 win teams going into regional, which is what you kind of expect. But as you see, as we go through the rest of these, that's not always the case. You get some teams that turn it on, towards the end of the year here, even though they maybe only have 10, 11, 12 wins. So let's keep moving in that 1A bracket, and we're going to, here are the four sectionals that are going to the Lafayette Central Catholic Regional. And I believe, because there's a 4A regional up there too, I believe this is also going to be at Loeb Stadium. So I think there's two regionals at Loeb Stadium in Lafayette. I know the 4A is. I'm not for sure if this is. But that Lafayette Central Catholic sectional, you had Lafayette Central Catholic and Riverton Park. That was the matchup right there. This was a tough 1A sectional, and I had Riverton Park with the chance of winning it all, but they were taken down by Central Catholic, and they are currently playing Covington. That game started about an hour ago. It started at 7:30. Covington.
Yeah, I believe that since the regional is a 3-game thing, one game will probably be at LCC and the other one will be at Loeb Stadium as far as the regional goes next week.
So Lafayette Central Catholic and Covington are both playing right now. Over in Tri-County, you had Rossville beating Sheridan, and then Clinton Central over South Newton. A couple teams there south and north of that Lafayette area there. We're still kind of the northwest part of the state right there. So you're looking at Rossville and Clinton Central, and they also started at 7 p.m. So maybe we'll have an update for the before the end. Same way with Westdale over Southern Wells, and Cowan, Steve's pick for the 1A champion. They beat Tri-Central. So Cowan and Westdale are playing they may be getting close to over, because that game started is it final?
Final score, Cowan 5, Westdale 3.
Cowan's still alive. Steve, I think that's a rematch of last year's sectional final. I believe that Cowan versus Westdale.
Would not be surprised. I think you're right.
So is it Coach is it actually Coach Wells at Cowan? I'm trying. I think so. So yeah, good one there. They're on a run again, 2 sectional titles in a row, and they actually won the regional title last year too. And they will probably be going up against the winner of Union City versus Blue River Valley, who are also, that game's most definitely over.
That game is final as well.
And who was that one?
Union City 9-4.
Union City. So now
Indians beat Vikings.
So that gives the 2 wins on that score right there, puts Union City up to 18-6 for the Union City Indians right there over Blue River Valley. I was hoping that one would be done, because Max Preps didn't have a score for it about 30-40 minutes ago when I put it in there, but the game started at 5, so I'm sure they would have had it in there. So that's good. One more in 1A here. Yeah, 2 more in 1A. This is the 4 sectionals that go to the Morristown regionals. And I don't have finals on these yet. If you guys see one, let me know. We've got White River Valley and Shakamak are facing off in that Shakamak sectional final right there. And these are, all four of these teams. They're, right there. These guys, like Brian was talking about, Northwest Indiana. These are all teams south and southeast of Terre Haute right there. I see a few mainly in the southwest Indiana. So this is basically a conference tournament right here. And Shakamak, you guys know how much I love Shakamak. I've said at the beginning of the year, they'll come into sectionals with 10 or 12 losses. I was a couple off, and then they might make a run just because that's what Shakamak does.
You look at Chacamac, and obviously they had a nice run a few years back, getting to Indianapolis on occasion. And the thing about it is, for a 1A school, they still play the bigger schools. They go up towards Terre Haute. They'll play South. They'll play North on occasion. They'll play West Vigo. They'll play those schools in Terre Haute, and obviously it gets them ready for the postseason. And I think that's the key to their success that they had down through the years, was the ability to go up to play those schools in Terre Haute or around that area. And you might get knocked around a little bit, but it makes you a better club in the long run.
Yeah, that is their equation. Matter of fact, not this year so much, but that last year in 21 when they went to the finals before losing to, who they lose to in the 1A? Oh, they lost to Washington Township, of course.
Right.
But 2 years ago, their schedule included Jasper, the Terre Haute teams, like you mentioned. Then, of course, Edgewood, who was in the state finals year before that,
right,
pre-COVID. So, I mean, their schedule strength is really strong. And that's the equation. You look at a lot of these teams that we're going to see here, Cascade over University. That's perfect example because Cascade and University both have brutal schedules throughout the year. So that was a great matchup. But we'll get to that. So at the sectional at the Indiana School for the Deaf, these schools, Traders Point Christian and Bethesda Christian, I mean, you could throw a baseball. Well, someone younger than me that still has cartilage in his shoulder could throw a baseball between these schools and they'd hit each other. I mean, these schools are practically neighbors. Bethesda in Brownsburg, and then Traders Point Christian is just northeast of Brownsburg on your way to Zionsville. So really close. I don't have a score for that one yet, but it was neat to see those two in the final there. Going to Morristown, Indianapolis Lutheran, who beat Morristown, is going to be facing Edinburgh, who beat Waldron right there. And so now that Lutheran has that win, that gives them 20-8 currently, and they're going to be going up. They're going up right now. That game that started at 7:30, so that one's probably not over yet. Might be by the time we're done or by the time I'm done talking here. Then we go to Jacksonville, and the host, Jacksonville, their coach broke a milestone this year. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he passed
Bradshaw.
David Bradshaw passed, 600 this year?
500.
500. And he's been at it for around 30 years as well. And Rising Sun and Hauser, the records, put these guys pretty evenly matched, but I had Hauser winning this sectional. I say I had Hauser winning this sectional. As I looked at him, I had Hauser winning this sectional with a possible update in the regional as well, just because they have two strong arms. Their ace has 2 no-hitters this year, one of only 2, maybe 3 now, pitchers who have that many no-hitters in the state. Not taking anything away from Rising Sun, though. They're putting together a good season. That right now it puts them at 15-8, and we'll see how they do at Jacksonville. That game started at 7, so it's probably getting close to wrapping up. And one more 1A sectional to go through here, and these are the 4. I'm sitting here. I got a teacher with me. I got to use proper grammar. That's Steve doesn't check my words too much. But now that I got a teacher on the show, I got to use proper grammar. These are the 4 sectionals that will lead into the Lagodi Regional. So in Lanesville, we have Lanesville versus Borden, and that sectional that title game started at 6 p.m. So it's probably getting done here anytime soon. And then we go to Shaw Memorial Sectional Championship is against New Washington and West Washington. We'll try to get a score for you on that as well. Then back over to Lagodi, you have North Davies and Bar Reeve. And this at the Lagodi sectional started at 7:30. I'll be anxious about this because these are that part of the state I love. I've said it before, but Bar Reeve and North Davies is south between or around Vincennes, Terre Haute, and East. That area right there is where these teams are located. So a good matchup there between Bar Reeve and North Davies. As a matter of fact, just kind of an underrated matchup that is really closer than what these records show. Then, of course, you have Shoals, who has the best or most unique mascot name in all of sports with the Shoals Jugrocks. Over to Cannleton, who has a great field, by the way, just an old-time field with those old-time bleachers. Absolutely love it. You have Springs Valley. Don't forget the S there. Springs Valley, home of Larry Bird, going up against Tecumseh for that sectional final right there. Those teams know each other very well, too. They're more towards the center of the state.
Tecumseh won that.
Tecumseh knocks off Springs Valley.
Springs Valley 11-0.
Very good, very good. So there's another one we just
Ted
added.
Thompson is the coach of the Tecumseh.
What did you say his name was? Is he a new coach? I thought I had a different name for him.
No.
Okay.
He's been there a while. Yeah.
Let's move on to 2A.
Tecumseh made a run a couple years ago.
Yeah, they did. Well, that part of the state, that's really in the southern part, just like due south of Indianapolis, is where those schools are.
Lanesville's been in the state finals a couple of times. Borden's coming on. You talked about North Davies and Bar Reeve, and Bar Reeve's been in the state finals.
Every time we have
small school baseball down there.
Yeah, it is. Every time we have Greg Rakestraw on, he's got to mention the Lanesville state titles.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the proud Lanesville grad. Yeah, the Swinging Eagles.
Brian, as we move into 2A, I'll throw another question here for you. Matter of fact, I'm going to have you talk about a few of these schools, but Rakestraw talked about once, I always like to ask, what was just one of those moments when you're broadcasting where you just feel like a kid and you just get lost in the moment. And he was talking about the time where he's at the Vic and he's, up there doing radio. I don't know if he was doing TV, but he was up there for the Lanesville State Finals, and he's an alma mater of Lanesville. In your broadcasting, you're up there in the booth about every other year. How neat would it be just to now that you have a different view of watching the Griffith Panthers, seeing your old team out there, or now you can be like me and your favorite team is every team throughout the year. But how neat's it going to be to see some of these Northwest teams up there while you're announcing?
It's cool because a lot of these guys are friends of mine up here. We're very close knit up here, coaching wise. We all want to beat each other on the field, but we're very tight off the field. And I have a similar story to what Greg had mentioned to you. Back in 2015, Whiting was in the state championship in 2A in football, and my brother was the defensive coordinator there. And I had spent 9 years on the football staff at Whiting, coaching football there when I was younger. And I was doing the game for the local radio station up here. And I told my partner, who's one of my close friends, I said, when Whiting comes out of the tunnel, I'm not going to be able to talk because I'm going to be choked up and emotional. And sure as heck, as soon as they came running out, they play the intro music and all that kind of thing. And then when the kids took the field, I see my brother and I see everybody running out. I couldn't talk, and I knew it. And I knew I was choked up. So my buddy had to sort of do the intro and all that kind of thing. And it gave me a chance to get my bearings straight. So I get where Greg's coming from. It's part of you as it has been for me for many years. And, when you just want to see people that you're close to and people that you're tight with do well. And, it's a cool experience. There's no question about it.
Well, I'm glad you said that you're going to stay, close with the Coaches Association because, you've been doing it for a long time, and the amount of respect they have for you, you're a great mentor to the younger coaches coming out there. Plus, like you said, all the guys. The brotherhood of coaching, you've got to know all of them for so long. So there's a lot of opportunities, being up there at the perch at the Vic, seeing your buddies down there leading their team to a title. That's something special right there. Here's some more teams up in your neck of the woods here. These are the 4 sectionals that are going to the Whiting Regional. And folks, if you have not seen a game in Whiting, you've got to get up there. It is the best place to watch a night baseball game almost in all of Indiana or the Midwest because you're up there at Oil City Stadium and you've got the oil refinery over right field and center field area, and it looks like at night you've got New York City in the background, and it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a cool place. There's no question about it. And this is a really good regional. You look at the teams coming in. Obviously, Ileana Christian in their second year in the IHSAA this year. Jeff Vanderwood has done a really nice job with his club. They're very athletic. They're very long. They've got quality arms on the mound. They got a kid named Cochran who's upwards 85 to 87 who can bring it from the right side. They've got a right-hander by the name of Meyer, or a left-hander rather by the name of Meyer, who's a freshman, who's, low 80s as well. And they're just extremely athletic. You look at that Boone Grove Winnemac game right there. I guess the Winnemac won that one, huh?
Winnemac won 8-7.
Yeah, okay. See, that's a bit of an upset to me because obviously we played Boone Grove this year, and I know Winnemac's had a solid season. But, I look at Boone Grove's schedule. They play a lot of the bigger schools up here as well. But, come tournament time, all it takes is one game. And depending on how the draw is set up and the brackets set up, you get an advantage. So, Winnemac coming over there for that regional. Obviously, they're a quality club. You look at their record, then you look down at Fairfield and Westview. Obviously, even though Fairfield won that 1-6-3 on paper coming in, I would have thought that, you would have had to give the nod to Westview with some of the success they've had over the years. And Eastside and Woodland, those are two schools, obviously, that are very familiar with one another in many different sports. And to see Eastside come out of that one, I'm not surprised. Eastside has had a nice run in many different sports, and I think they're making a return trip back to Oil City Stadium as well. So I think you're looking at a good regional over at Whiting next weekend.
Yeah,
what you get right there, Dan?
I know exactly where you're going. Go ahead.
You get a rematch of Alec Hirschberger of Fairfield and Owen
Willard.
Yeah, Owen Willard
Willard.
at East Side. They've matched up a few times. I saw him this year at Fairfield. That was a knockdown drag out. It finally decided the game when those guys were done and in extra innings at Fairfield.
I tell you,
those are NECC teams, so they see each other.
I could talk about this slide right here. I could talk about this slide for probably 30 minutes. First of all, like Brian said, Ileana Christian's only their second year in the IHSAA, so this would be their first IHSAA sectional win. But they were a 20-win team last year as well before they ran into, I can't remember who they ran into last year and lost to, but I think it was Hanover Central maybe.
Yes.
But
no. Last year they got beat by, I think it was Bishop Knoll maybe?
Bishop Knoll? Okay.
Hanover's in 3A.
Oh, you're right. With but then this Fairfield and Westview, this is a rematch from a week and a half ago when Alec Hirschberger had 16 strikeouts in 6 2/3 innings, and they were up 6-0. Of course, this was right after that team lost one of their players. It was such an emotional game. I was up there, and I said 2 weeks ago, this was the most attended high school baseball game, regular season high school baseball game I've ever seen at any level. It was crowded all the way around. Westview did something special. They brought in extra bleachers and everything. A lot of the money was contributed to the funds for the Fairfield player who was lost. And Alec Hirschberger was lights out for 6 2/3 innings. They were up 6-0. He had to come out. They lost in extra innings, and it was just one of those emotional games that you'll remember forever. And then, as Steve alluded to, we are looking at now, depending on how the brackets line up, but a Alec Hirschberger versus Owen Willard showdown right here is going to be a gem for sure. And this will be the second, possibly third time they've done it this year. Fairfield, I'll tell you what though, Fairfield, for this regional, Fairfield's got a long way to drive, and so does Eastside. These are all the way on the opposite side of the state. So pretty good drive for them. I don't know if that'll come into play or not. So let's keep moving on here in 2A. And these 4 regionals go to the Carroll of Flora. And I got to say, I listened again. Sometimes I re-listen to some of our broadcasts just to count the errors that I make. And I don't know what it was. I've said Carroll of Flora forever. But I think I said Carroll of Florida like 6 times last week. So Carroll fans, I'm Hardy the Hat guy. It comes with the territory. So, but that Wabash, Steve, do you have a final in that Wabash by chance? That it started at nope, the Wabash. I don't have what time that one started.
Not yet. Carroll's playing Whitco, but I haven't gotten the final score on that one yet.
The going over to Delphi, you have 19-8, well now 20-8 Delphi Community going up again. I love this matchup. I've said at the beginning of the year too, Seeger is another dark horse in that 2A bracket right there. They beat Lafayette Central Catholic just about 2 weeks ago, and they knock off Webo pretty handedly today, and they're facing Delphi Community right now. That game started at 7, so it might be done by the end of the show. Then we go to Eastern of Greentown, and you have them, the host, beating East Brook 13-4, and they're going to be going up most likely against the great Wapahani, who is, just consistently year in and year out putting in great performances. They're 22-4 now. Their coach just got win number 800 a week and a half ago. So just what a great showdown that's
Eastern
going to be.
Greentown has been a top 5 team for much of the second half of the season. They're
look at this regional.
They've really had a great year.
Yep, I mean Carroll of Florida. I did it again. Carroll of Flora. They were. I think they're currently number one. They're sitting at 24-1, 25 if they win this. Of course, Greentown is now 23-7. Wapahani's now 22-4, and if Seeger wins, they'll be 23-4. Well, actually, they're 23-4 now. They'll be 24-4. So this is this bracket's kind of nuts right here. But I tell you what, starting with regionals, the only person that gets nuts is me. I love this stuff. This is May Madness for me. And let's look at these 4 sectionals. These lead into the Park Tudor Regional. I don't have a final yet on Centerville and Hagerstown. Hagerstown beat Northeastern earlier in the morning. Then Centerville, who also was ranked in the top 5 pretty much all year, knocked off a good Shenandoah team. So we're looking at Centerville and Hagerstown. They started at 7:30. Over to Heritage Christian and Cecina Memorial. Wow, this one surprised me. Heritage Christian's good. This is the Heritage Christian of Indianapolis, not the one of Dyer. There's another new one up in northwest Indiana. But they beat Cecina handedly, 12-1. And then look at this Park Tudor sectional. This is, in my opinion, one of the toughest 2A sectionals in the state. University, who I had picked to win it all, loses to a good Covenant Christian team. Don't call that an upset. Even though University's ranked higher, I wouldn't call that an upset. I wouldn't call any of these an upset. And then Cascade knocks off Monrovia. And Cascade and Covenant Christian matchup, if you guys want to keep an eye on that one, because that one started at 7 o'clock. I'm really anxious to see who won that one, because that is a Hulk versus Juggernaut matchup right there. Then you have over in Park Heritage, which is Park Heritage used to be Rockville. Of course, Rockville won a state final as a 1A team back. Yeah, Rockville and Turkey Run. Look at that. Did you guys hear that? Mrs. Hat Guy right there in the background just updated me and corrected me there. We are filmed in front of a live studio audience of 1. Park Heritage over North Putnam and Southmont over Cloverdale. That's going to be a good one. Park Heritage, WRC, and Southmont, who I believe is Sagamore Conference. So good matchup right there. And let's go to the next 2A bracket. And this is a good one. This South Ripley schedule right here, they played the whole tournament today because of rainouts. Look at that. This is a 6-team tournament that they tried to finish today. So I don't know the output of this so far, but I know Southwestern beat Switz City, and then South Decatur beat South Ripley, and then Southwestern won that matchup. They were still waiting for a score between Milan and North Decatur the last time I checked. But
North Decatur beat Milan 8-3, so it was Southwestern and North Decatur in the championship game.
Okay.
7:30 start.
Well, and Southwestern's put together. This is the Southwestern of Hanover, not the. I believe it's Southwestern of Hanover, not the Southwestern in Shelbyville. Yeah, Milan. Yeah. This is Southwestern of Hanover. Then we go down to Providence, which is down there by New Albany, and Providence knocks off Austin 9-8. And Providence, of course, last year's runner-up in 2A. And they're starting to turn it around, 17-10 at one point. Matter of fact, a big part of the season, I believe they were a 500 team, but it's a slow-moving train, and I think they're hitting on all cylinders now, so you may want to watch for them. Then over to Mitchell, one of the teams that I love to watch, Linton Stockton. I've said you guys a few times that I'm a big fan of the Southwestern Indiana Athletic Conference, the SWIAC, we would call it, I guess. But Linton Stockton won that conference this year, and they had to beat Shakamak to do it, and they were like a 500 team when they won that conference title. So they are also I don't know how they're doing against Mitchell right now. That one started at 7, so we may have a final on that. And then going over to the modern day sectional, this is in the far southwest part of the state. Here's some historically good teams right here. Forest Park beat North Posey, and then Tell City knocked off Perry Central. Now, on paper, like Coach Jennings was saying earlier, on paper this could look like an upset, but these two teams know each other. So this was a familiar rivalry right there. So you can definitely throw out the records when you're looking at matchups like that. Let's keep going now. Let's bring it up to 3A. And we're in Coach Jennings' backyard right here. The winners of these 4 sectionals go to the Griffith Regional. And, Coach, you have won that sectional 9 years in a row before you ran into a team called Andrean. And I got one question for you. How good is Andrean? Because they look scary good to me.
Obviously, they're a very good club. They've got an outstanding pitcher in Peyton Nix, who's going to play at Purdue Northwest next year. He doesn't overpower you with his fastball, but his slider's outstanding. His changeup's good. When you can throw your secondary pitches for strikes, obviously you're going to be in good shape at the high school level. They can hit it. Drake Bowen, the Notre Dame recruit in football, outstanding player as well. Athletic, top to bottom, solid. The thing when you play Andrean is that you've got to minimize big mistakes, minimize their opportunities. And in our game with them the other day, they beat us 10-2. We spotted them 1 in the first. We misplayed a fly ball in right center. Counter that with a bunt that we didn't field cleanly, and then we're chasing 1 run in the first inning, and that just plays into Andrean's style of baseball. They want to put pressure on you when they get the lead, and that's why it's crucial in tournament games when you play a club like Andrean that you hold serve, so to speak, as long as you can, because obviously they're a club, as you see their record, 26-4, now 27-4, I think, with the win. You look at them and then you say, okay, in order to beat a club like this, you've got to find a way to beat themselves. And that really comes down to having the ability to put pressure on them. Obviously, they're going to make a trip back. They're down in 3A this year. They were in 4A last year. They'll go back to 3A as part of the reclassification. Even though they are typically and technically a 2A school, they came from 3A at the last reclassification, so they came back down this year. John Glenn beating Hanover Central today. John Nadolny is just as solid as it gets over there with his club. They're young. They're grinders, and Steve, you've seen them as well, I'm sure. They're a club that, beat Hanover 9-1, and year in and year out, they don't wow you with anything special. It's not like they've got a bunch of flashy guys. They've just got tough grinders over there, and I'm not surprised to see John Nadolny and his club make a return trip to the regional.
Yeah, I saw Glenn beat Adams earlier, and we know Adam. Spoiler alert: Adams is a sectional champion this year. And I saw Hanover Central beat Elkhart, so I was impressed by both of those teams.
Well, and
that other ball game, South Bend Clay and New Prairie, guys. I saw the score was, I think, 6-3 at the end of 2. South Bend St. Joe on top.
Yeah, I saw it was third inning, same score. So that was just a few minutes ago.
They're obviously South Bend St. Joe's had success over the last number of years. They've been to the state championship. They've won the state championship. New Prairie, a very solid club. Mark Schellinger, one of the more underrated coaches in the northwest part of the state. He's a LaPorte guy. Grew up, played at LaPorte, so he brings that style of baseball to New Prairie. They're very fundamentally sound. That's still the relatively early ball game. And Western and Northwestern, those are just 2 schools that are as familiar with each other as it gets.
I saw those 2 teams play each other earlier in the year too. Right, that was real early, so it was a 1-0 game.
Yeah, so obviously Western's got a staff of loaded arms, and Northwestern. It has a kid that's going to pitch at Ball State next year. He's actually the grandson of Ty Callaway, who was a Hall of Famer in the IHSBCA. So he comes from a bloodline of baseball. Northwestern, we saw them last year in the regionals. They beat us 3-1. But the thing that makes this club so good is that they're just tough kids, and they're fundamentally very sound. They've got an outstanding young coach. They just do the little things that you need to do to win ball games. So I'd be interested to see the score in that one. I know it's probably second or third inning in that ball game, maybe a little bit later. But on paper, I thought Western would have the advantage, but I'm not going to count Northwestern out at no point.
Well, this is another slide that I could spend 20 minutes on this slide because, first of all, if you look at those 2 sectionals at the top there, Hanover Central, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Hanover Central as well as Munster, and I can't recall the other 2, but Hanover Central and Munster are 2 of those 4 losses against Andrean. 2 of
Hanover
Andrean's
Central
4 losses.
Upset them. Right. Andrean beat them, and then they got beat by two schools over on the Illinois side in a big tournament later on in the year. So, yeah, 2 of their 4 losses have come from those 2 schools.
So that shows you that matchup right there of Glenn and Hanover Central. This is, again, why you can't look at the records by themselves. Of course, Glenn, I've said from the beginning of the year, matter of fact, at one point when Glenn was 12-0, they went 4-0 the following, and they got ranked, they broke the rankings for the first time. They were ranked 10th. They won 4 games that following week and then dropped out of the top 10. So I think Glenn is playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I absolutely love that. Just you said Coach Ndoldi is going strong. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, can I back up a little bit? I got an update here. Western is ahead of Northwestern 2-1. 5th inning, Mitchell Dean of Western, who's going to Louisville, it struck out the side in the 5th. So Western's up on Northwestern 2-1, 5th inning. Bottom of the 5th.
I talked to Ryan Berryman earlier today after his first ball game, his first victory, and he, after his first game win, and he was just he's worried about he was worried about this Northwestern club coming in. Obviously, and it's not always the best team that wins in the postseason. It's the hottest team. Mm-hmm. You don't always throw your best pitcher. You throw your hottest pitcher, your pitcher that has the ability to pitch a certain style that you think might challenge a club. And, he was obviously very concerned about a very good Northwestern club coming in.
Well, that other one right there, the South Bend St. Joe and New Prairie, I talked to an umpire earlier this year in Northwest Indiana, and he said New Prairie, of all, he's umpiring 3 games a week, and they were the most underrated team he's seen all year. So, I mean, that this regional right here is going to be brutal for sure. So let's move on
I think
to
it's the best regional in 3A in the state.
Matter of fact, I had that note right there. I don't know of any regional that would be better than that. We got some background studio audience going in the background. I think you can hear there my killer dog there. Let's go to this 3A sectionals that lead into the Oak Hill Regional. Starting out in Jimtown, Wawasee knocks off Northwood 9-5, and then over in Angola we have Fort Wayne Bishop Dwenger going up against Leo. And I'll tell you what, that Bishop Dwenger right there and Garrett matchup, I had my eye on that one for a while. That could have went either way, but Garrett has put together a great year. So Dwenger and Leo are going on. That one might be done. That one started at 6 by my notes. Then over in Belmont, we had Norwell and Oak Hill. Man, we could talk about this one for a while. Just talk about 2 good men leading these programs. We could say that about a lot of them. But, Norwell and Oak Hill, you've got, 2 just if you want to start a team, I'm looking at coaches like this, to start your team. Tell me about, I know is it Sean at Oak Hill and at
Shane Edwards and I are good friends, and I know Coach Goodmiller as well.
Yep.
At Norwell, we played Norwell this year. We played them last year down at Crawfordsville in their invitational. 2 outstanding coaches. Shane is as old school, but in a young guy body, so to speak. He's a grinder. His kids are grinders. This is, I think, their first year in 3A, and he was really concerned about how they would compete at the 3A level. But I'm not surprised to see him at 22-6 in a championship game, just because, they are so well coached. And, Coach Goodmiller's been around a long time. He's a guy who's seen it all. He's been through the rigors of it all. He's a baseball guy. He's a gentleman. Last year, just a quick story, when we played Hanover Central, in the postseason, he was trying to get his scouting information, and he had gotten word that Ryan Bridges at Hanover Central was on my staff and actually played for me. And he had sent me a quick text, and he just said, "Hey, Coach, I just want you to know that, I was asking people about you and getting some information on Hanover, and I heard that Ryan had played for you. I'm not even going to put you in that position." And there's not too many guys that would do something like that. But, Coach Goodmiller obviously is a good man, and he was very much respectful of the situation that we were in. And, those are 2 good guys right there over in that sectional championship who I had a ton of respect for, and I have a ton of respect for to this day.
Well, and Norwell was leading Heritage 10-2 in the 6th inning, and that was about 15 minutes ago. So that's what I know.
And Norwell's just
they
another
play a
one
great
of those
schedule. I mean, you look at their record; they're 16-10. And again, they play an outstanding schedule, and that's why you see, when you schedule, you've got to try to find 10 games that you can win, 10 games that you're probably going to lose, and then it's the other 10 games that really make the difference, and that puts you in a position to have success or otherwise.
Absolutely. That's you got to play best to be the best. And let's go over to Newcastle, or Yorktown rather. This is another good one right here. Newcastle, who I've been a fan of all year, beat Garin Catholic 3-2 in a tight game right there. Garin Catholic really started to turn it on there towards the end of the year, but Newcastle has just been steady and consistent. And going with what Brian said, they play a brutal schedule as well over there on the east side of the state. So with Newcastle, they're playing all those tough teams, but actually they're playing all over the state. So with that tough schedule, once again, they're 14-5, but with that brutal schedule, they're able to win the tight games like this one right here. But Garin Catholic had a really tough schedule as well, so I'm sure that was a good game. Let's move on.
Before we move on,
uh-huh.
Mark De La Garza, he just sent us the final score. Norwell beat Heritage 12-2.
I just got that. He sure did. Thank you, Papa Coach. So Norwell over Heritage. I'll tell you what, Steve, was that the team that you had winning it all in 3A? I was trying to think who you had. I can't remember.
No, not in 3A.
Okay. Let's move on to the teams going to the Danville Regional. And I'll tell you, if there's any regional that's going to compete with that Griffith Regional up there, it might be this one. Lebanon Northview. Lebanon knocked off my alma mater, South Vermilion, earlier today, and then Northview. I called this one. Crawfordsville was good. I've seen Crawfordsville play a couple times this year, but Northview, once again, brutal schedule. They're playing all the Terre Haute teams, as a 3A school, and I think they beat them all. Plus, they're playing West Vigo, who's number one, not number one in the state, but I think number 3 in the state. So Northview's got a tough schedule. I think they were the 2017 state champion for 3A, or might have been 4A, because they hover back and forth. They're a 3A team.
They were the 3A champions in 17.
17. They every now and then they hop up to 4A just because they're right there in the middle. That's your old stomping ground, Steve, there in Brazil area, just east of Terre Haute. And we'll go over from there in the Danville Sectional, who's also hosting the regional. You have Tri-West, who is another team that is on the rise, and they've got Brebeuf Jesuit, and that one started at 7. I got a feeling Brebeuf's going to have more arms to handle this a little bit better than Tri-West will, but I got to shout a name out for this Tri-West. I've been watching this kid all year. He's only a freshman. His name's Jackson Catt. He's with Tri-West, and we're going to mention him here later as in the top performers, but he went 3 for 3 today with a home run. Only a freshman. 3 for 3 with a home run, 3 RBIs, 3 RBI. So Jackson Catt, another big game for him. Then Bishop Chatard, you had Beech Grove with a 1-run win over Bishop Chatard, and then here was a big one, West Vigo with a tight win over Edgewood. And, these guys know each other. They're in that Southwest, or they're in the WIC, the Western Indiana Conference, which is for the 3A conference, that conference is brutal. And West Vigo over Edgewood. Of course, Edgewood was the state runner-up to Andrean in the 4A state title back in 2019, I believe it was. But West Vigo is just on a roll. They're on a mission there. Coach DeGroat is just got it going on. He's a family of baseball right there. His dad is in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, his oldest brother, Corey, who was my age, went on to have a great, successful basketball career at ISU. Now he's a umpire, a referee in basketball.
Right.
Then Casey and then Coley, both great athletes. Just a great family, good people as well. So good regional there. One more in 3A. Let's go to it. And these teams are going to the South Ridge Regional, starting out in Rushville, and we're down at the bottom part of the state here now. This is 10-16 Connorsville, now 11-16 knocks off 5-14 Greensburg, and then Franklin County beats a good. This is an eye opener. With all respect to Franklin County, they've had a good year, but I've had my eye on Batesville. They're really they were trending in the right direction there towards the end of the year. Plus, they've got a great team game award that they give out every week. It's the bowling pin. I absolutely love it. So we'll see what the Franklin County, that sectional just started at 8. So it's just about 10-9 right now. So we may not have that one, or if I talk long enough, we might. But let's go over to Madison. One of the most beautiful parts of the state for sure. Down there you had Silver Creek, who, man, they are rolling. Keep your eye on Silver Creek. They very well. First of all, if you talk about the equation of a successful program, you got to mention Silver Creek, because it all starts at that little league youth level, and they've got a program where they keep people together all the way up, and you've seen that how that plays out in the records that they're putting in and year out with Silver Creek. The Dragons there really got a great program, one to watch and a program to mimic. Down to Princeton, over west, over to Princeton, and I think we just got another one from Coach De La Garza there. Dwinger beat Leo 19-8. That was a new one we just got. Princeton, Vincennes Lincoln knocks off Pike Central, and Southridge. I tell you, this is a game right here of, Coach Mattingly, been there, done that, experience, but Gibson Southern, we've talked about it almost every week on this show, how success in one sport correlates over to success in the baseball season, and Gibson Southern was a prime example of that this year. They end in a very good run, 18-6. Of course, we all know how good they were in football this past season, and they ran into a Southridge team, which Coach Mattingly, he took his graduating class, went to the state year every year they were in high school.
Right.
So they're you've got to keep an eye on them, just because they've been there, done that. And Coach Mattingly, he's a seasoned veteran on his trip to the Vic. Let's go over to Bosse and Evansville Memorial knocks off Boonville 9-0 right there. And this is another case of Evansville Memorial. Good year for Evansville baseball, period. All across Evansville had a really good year this year. And it shows with Evansville Memorial how they were able to handle Boonville, who also was really putting it together there towards the end of the year. So let's move into the 4A bracket. And, of course, we start up in Northwest Indiana. That's how the numbers correlate as you go to 1A to 4A. These 4 sectionals lead to the LaPorte Regional. Starting off in Highland, wow, this was the Wild West right here. This was a gunslinger show. This was Peyton Manning versus John Elway right here. This was with all the runs. Highland, I said last week, they'd put up 20 runs in their last 2 games, so they're going to score on anybody. Lake Central, and Coach, you were one of the teams that got a chance to beat Lake Central this year. So tell us about these teams, as well as excuse me, Crown Point and Hobart. Okay, pay attention to say that right this time. Tell us about these Highland and Valparaiso sectionals.
Well, you look at these 2 sectionals. The Highland LC sectional. Highland has sort of been the little brother, you might say, in that 4A sectional the last number of years. Highland, one of the smaller schools in 4A, playing against the big guys at Lake Central and Crown Points, things like that. And Highland had a 6-1 lead after 4. After 3 against LC today, and then all of a sudden LC put up a 7 spot to take an 8-6 lead, and it was just home run after home run. The wind was blowing out probably 35 miles an hour at Highland today. Highland puts up some more runs, and then the next thing you know, LC gets like 8 more in the 7th to win 15-12. And Lake Central's a club with outstanding talent, outstanding pitchers. They've got a kid that's committed to Xavier. They've got a catcher that's committed to Tennessee in Santana. They're just an outstanding club as well. Very strong, very big, very physical. Mike Schwarzenchuba really does a good job with his kids. That was a heck of a ball game. Crown Point over Hobart. Trent, this Crown Point club, Steve Strayer, a Hall of Famer in the IHSBCA, getting his club back to a sectional championship against Hobart. Hobart under a new coach this year, and Trent really did a great job with his kids at Hobart this year. And it's one of those kind of stories there for Hobart where they're in the NCC now. They were in the Duneland for years. They came into the NCC. Trent Howard took over this year at Hobart for Bobby Glover. Really did a great job with his kids and had his kids in an upset win over Valpo. I was actually at that game this past Friday. They get a double play to end the ball game to upset Valpo, but they ran into too much Crown Point, and I know obviously LaPorte and South Bend Adams is down at Plymouth. That's going on right now. I'm going to assume Scott Up and LaPorte will be hosting that as the team host next week, playing in their own regional. And Penn and North.
No, that's not true. Adams beat them 5. Adams won that game.
Wow. I'm shocked by that. I just thought LaPorte's pitching in itself would be enough to win that one. But obviously, as we said earlier, one game anybody can beat anybody. So congratulations to Adams. I know that's a great win for their program, Steve. And obviously you cover them quite a bit. So that's a big win for them.
Well, you're not kidding. Looking at that roundup there with Lake Central, Crown Point, LaPorte, those teams, you said it earlier, talk about beating each other up. You throw Munster in the mix. Now you throw Andrean in the mix. And that 3A, 4A Northwest Indiana region this year, the extended region we'll call it, just all of Northwest Indiana, was just a great year for baseball. And Crown Point, they've that was a surprising win to me. I saw Hobart play this year earlier in the year. Matter of fact, I think it was Hobart and Highland. Sorry, I get in trouble when I talk to region people and I keep saying Hobart and Highland this year. But and with all due, obviously, Crown Point coach has been there, done that, so you can't put them out. But I had Hobart winning that one, and Penn and Northridge right there. Penn, the Northern Indiana Conference champion, going up against Northridge, who tied with Goshen for a share of the Northern Lakes Conference title right there. So that was a good matchup, and the score shows it. So we're all filled up on this one.
That's where I was today.
At the Penn and Northridge?
Yeah, Penn went up 4-0. Northridge came back, went up 5-4. Penn got 2 runs on there's a sacrifice fly, what ended up being a sacrifice fly to the right fielder, but the other kid was hustling behind him, ended up scoring 2 runs on it, went ahead 6-5, and then they tacked on a run. So it was actually, 6-5 was the final, or 7-5 was the final.
I was going to try to update that real quick. LaPorte takes down, there we go.
LaPorte only lost 4 games outside of the Duneland Conference this year. That was one of them.
You're saying South Bend Adams won that. Hold on. See, I've got my mind set on LaPorte right there. There we go. That's correct.
Adams is legit. Adams.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm not taking anything away from Adams by calling that an upset, but looking at the year LaPorte has.
The coach Adams.
Right. And, in high school baseball, this is kind of, as we have just, 2 or 3 more 4As, and one little question I want to interject here real quick. Obviously there are some upsets in high school baseball, but at the end of the day, the argument could easily be made that there's really not upsets in high school baseball, because at the end of the day, these kids are 18, 17, 16, 15 years old. And, if you want to say how much notoriety and clout and good records will get you, just talk to Coach Mattingly, and talk to him about the 2019 state finals. And it's a sour moment, sour conversation talking to him, but it's a reminder that no matter how good they are, these are teenage kids and they're going to make mistakes. But for a fan like me, that's why I love the game. But that's why, Coach Jennings, that's why it makes your hair turn gray. And, but so 2 different perspectives. But for a fan perspective, I absolutely love it. 4A. And this regional right here is going to be another good one. This is also going to be at Lafayette. This is the Lafayette. Jeff is the host. And we start out with the sectional in DeKalb. And Fort Wayne Snyder was beating Carroll for a big part of this game. I saw most of this one. But Carroll did what Carroll did. And, Carroll did what Carroll does. And they just kept going and played all 7 innings. And that's why they are now 26-4. Huntington North, I don't have a schedule or a score yet. That one started at 6, so it might be done by now.
Homestead won 10-0.
Homestead won 10-0. Okay, I figured that would be somewhere around that area. I think Homestead was the 4A team that you had winning that bracket. So that You've got a matchup right there. Look at that regional matchup. You have 23-6 Homestead going up against 26-4 Carroll. These guys know each other really
Yeah,
well.
I saw these two teams play each other at Parkview Field a couple of weeks ago.
It was
That was a
probably
that
that
was a
series that you were at was the best series all year. It was a 3-game series.
you know more about action movies and comic books or whatever uh, phrase you say with the Titans against the
Oh, the
Goliaths or
Hulk
whatever.
versus
That's
Juggernaut.
kind of what that game
It is.
is
It's a
going to
Hulk
be.
versus Juggernaut game right there.
Because right, because they both got some power.
Well, let's go down to the these two southern teams from this bracket or from this regional. You got the Logansport sectional and the Noblesville sectional, and these two winners are facing each other. West Lafayette Harrison took down McCutcheon 5-4, and Harrison's another team that's on a roll. And you look at over the Noblesville sectional right there. Wow, this was sectional 8. This is the sectional that gets all the headlines, when you start out, because this Noblesville sectional had Carmel, Center Grove, Westfield, Zionsville, Fishers. This one had Zionsville, Fishers, Carmel, Noblesville. I'm thinking of another one we're going to show you here in a second that's equivalent. And Westfield, right? Westfield is in this one, yes. Zionsville beat Westfield earlier, and then I'll tell you in this game right here, Zionsville's Caleb Everson, I think I got that name right. Everson had a 3-run home run versus Fishers, and then Brody Chrisman just went off. He was 3 for 3 versus Fishers with 2 big flies. So Zionsville just put it all together today. And I'll tell you just real quick, I want to show something from the semifinals, because everybody talks about the home run, everybody talks about the no-hitter and everything like that, but there was one play from Fishers, and this was in the semifinal game versus was it we'll see it, Carmel, I think it was. Watch this play right here, and then we're going to talk about it.
1-2 on Snow. Well hit ball to left center field. It's off the fence. Snow is going to have at least 2. He's going to 3. Will there be a play? Got him! Wow!
Play!
Oh my! What a play by the Tigers! I thought that ball was going to be out of here, Perry.
Yeah, and what a play!
What a relay right there. That was Fishers versus Carmel. And that really because Carmel was just about ready to turn it on. That was a rally stopper right there. And I love a good relay. I love good defense. And I had to throw that one out there. There's a lot of, I got to give a shout out real quick to the Hamilton County TV. That was their footage right there. Good play-by-play action. Just a great play all around. I love a good relay. And but Zionsville, put it to Fishers today, and that is going to lead to a great matchup with Zionsville versus Harrison. So we've got 2 more 4A teams, and then we're going to talk about some of our top performers of the week before we wrap things up. And when we wrap things up, we're going to talk to Coach Jennings here, who's got the final out, and is going to give a little perspective on the history of baseball, where it's been as he sees it, as well as how it's going forward. But here we are in the 4 sectionals that lead into the New Pal Regional. First of all, Mount Vernon. This is the Fortville variety of Mount Vernon, the Marauders, and they took down a good Greenfield Central, and they will play Anderson, who took down Muncie Central. That sectional started at 7. It should be starting to wrap up that title. Then over at Indianapolis Pike, we have Cathedral taking down Pike, and then Lawrence North taking down North Central of Indianapolis. This will be a good final right here. Lawrence North is really, they were the MIC champions this year, really putting together a good season. Down in Roncalli, though, New Pal has won, I think, 12 in a row. New Pal they got a new, is it New Pal or Newcastle? They got the New Palestine, got the new coach this year. First year coach, he's 22-6 now. Newcastle was okay, but New Pal has really been going strong. I think they've got
Don Lyons is at New Palestine.
right,
He's been there a while.
and they're going to be playing the Flashes of Franklin Central, who took down Warren Central. On paper, that's an upset. Franklin Central knocks down fellow Mick opponent there, Warren Central. But same conference right there. That's not. If it's the same conference, I don't call it an upset because these guys know each other. So I don't know if we have a final on that one yet. That sectional title started at 7.
Cathedral beat Lawrence North 10-8.
10-8. Good game.
Cal beat Franklin Central 12-2.
And
Brownsburg was up 7-3 on Avon in top of the 5th.
I tell you this, Terre Haute Southland right here. This was a matchup of Henderson County versus Vigo County right here, and Henderson County swept them. Brownsburg at 20-7, and then Avon
Hendricks County?
yeah.
That's
Hendricks
the county you live in, right?
Yeah, Hendricks County versus Vigo County right there.
Yeah,
What did I say? Did I say Henderson?
That's in Henderson.
I did say Henderson, didn't I? Yeah, it's not like I live here. Hendricks County over Vigo County. The good matchup right there. And Brownsburg is currently leading Avon, if not done already, according to Max Preps. They're winning anyway. So that will bring a Brownsburg versus New Pal regional semifinal, and then Cathedral versus, we don't know what Mount Vernon and Anderson are doing yet, but either way, that'll be a good regional. And then we've got this right here, the southern part of the state 4A regionals. These are the regionals that are going, I think I got this wrong because I think I've got, New Pal. This regional, I've got it says New Pal, but that's wrong. This is actually down in Jasper, I believe. This regional is in Jasper, I believe. But anyway, is it Jasper?
I believe so, yes.
Starting out in the Center Grove sectional by itself. Center Grove, the team I had predicted to win it all, number 1 in the state, 25-2-1, got taken down by number 2, Mooresville. So you have the number 1 and number 2 teams in the state right there facing each other in the first round of sectionals. And I'll tell you what, this if you've not seen Mooresville play, of course, Center Grove gets a lot of the headlines. If you have not seen Mooresville play, they are legit. And I'm telling you what, they've got a two-headed monster in a Ace 1 and Ace 1B with between Denny and Wiley right there. And Wiley hit his 12th and 13th home run in their semifinal game versus Franklin Community. Of course, Franklin Community, is Max Clark. We all know that name. But Wiley just went off for 2 home runs in that game. Then they come back and they beat Center Grove. And then they're facing Martinsville, who beat a good Whiteland team. These are all teams down there in Johnson, and there's another county there just right around that, just south of Indianapolis, are where these teams are all located. Just a brutal sectional. Everybody talks about that sectional 8, which rightfully so, the Noblesville sectional. But this one right here had the number 1 and number 2 team in the state. And we're going to end with another sectional down in Evansville, which was just as good, in my opinion. But first, Bloomington South. I don't have a final on that one yet between Bloomington South and Columbus East. I know Columbus East, if you looked at Center Grove's schedule right there, 25-2-1. That one was versus Columbus East, where they tied after the 7th inning. The game was tied, but Columbus East didn't have lights yet. Coach Freezy said they're getting lights next year, so that won't happen again. But going over to Jennings County, New Albany takes down Bedford North Lawrence 4-0. And we got, if you guys follow Max Preps religiously like I do, Steve and I both caught this. There was actually an error on Max Preps yesterday because it said Evansville Harrison, who is 4-15, beat Jasper handedly. I can't even remember. They beat them 9. It showed that they beat them like 13-1 or something like that. So yesterday, Brian, and Steve, I didn't even tell you this. I had a whole spiel at the beginning of our show talking about the upsets and how records don't matter, and then come to find out that, Max Preps had it wrong. Jasper won that game versus Evansville Harrison. Then they come back and win the game versus Castle. And you talk about Hulk versus Juggernaut right here. Jasper and Castle, of course, Castle beat Evansville North by 13. Evansville North was ranked in the top 5 for a big part of the year, and Castle ruled them. So that is tournament baseball right there.
Well,
for
Castle was
sure.
ranked third.
Yeah.
North was fifth, and Jasper's eighth in the poll.
Yep.
Whatever that's worth.
Well, Jasper's been there too. You know, last year the returning state champion. Now they're going up against New Albany, and the winner of that will play the winner of Mooresville, Martinsville, Bloomington, South Columbus East. Whoever wins that conglomerate of games right there. Go ahead, Brian.
That's a cool matchup, New Albany and Jasper. You got obviously Terry Gobert at Jasper, been there forever, Hall of Famer. You got Chris McIntyre over at New Albany. Outstanding guy, 2 great guys, 2 guys very close friends. Brian Kirchhoff helps Terry over at Jasper. Brian and Chris are tight. It's cool. And as I said earlier, that's what I think makes it fun for the coaches, that they're playing against guys that they're close with and good friends. And Eric McGay up at Mooresville, that victory over Center Grove, obviously they're legit coming in, right, number 2 in the state. He's a guy that's been around for a while. He's a grinder. Martinsville's had success over the years as well. So that's a big time regional, no question about it, next weekend.
Well, you look at all of these teams on this page right here, every single one of them. These are historic programs, and no more so than what you talked about with Jasper and New Albany. Those programs right there from ground up have been good and have been good for a long time. So those guys are doing it right there for sure. So as we those are our regional matchups. But let's talk about some top performances from this week, and we're not going to catch all of them because we didn't catch all of them from this week. But the top performers, or as Steve said, I love my movies, I love my all that stuff. So as I call it, this week's Top Guns right there. Don't sue me, Tom Cruise. It's just fun. So here we go. Starting off with Keaton Floor of North Miami. 7 innings pitched, 17K no versus Pioneer. And I love to see that. North Miami won their first sectional ever, I think last year, or maybe it was a year before that, but new coach there's really got him going in the right direction there. Keaton Floor, I looked up some of his stats throughout the year when I saw this one, and he put together a really good year. 7 inning pitch, 17 Ks, no hitter versus Pioneer. Then going over to Northridge.
Floor is the coach. That's the coach's dad.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's
and Trevor Yoder up in Northridge. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Northridge was the co-champion, regular season champion of the Northern Lakes Conference. This was a unique no-hitter right here. 7 innings pitched.
Yeah, I saw this one. Yeah. 61 pitches.
61 pitches, 7 innings pitched, 1K.
The very definition of pitch to contact is one strikeout was the last batter of the game.
Yeah.
He went 12 pitches in the 7th inning. That's the longest. That's the most pitches he threw in any one of those 7 innings. So
you look
letting his defense help him.
I was just going to say, you look at that 2 ways. On the defensive side of the ball, you think that's great, man. You're pitching to contact. Your defense is into the ball game. He's pounding the zone, getting ahead of hitters. And then on the offensive side, you say to yourself as a coach, how come my guys weren't working, stepping out on him, trying to break his rhythm, and not even seeing the game? I could pretty much assume he was getting it and throwing it. It wasn't a case of walking around the mound. He had good pace. He had good rhythm.
That's exactly right. That game lasted about an hour and 45 minutes.
You look at it both ways. From the offensive side of the game, you talk about maybe stepping out on a guy, taking pitches, whatever it is to try to work the count. And then on the defensive side of the thing, as a coach, you love it because your defense is involved. He's pitching the contact. There's a flow to the game. There's a rhythm to the game. And those are the kind of games I like. To me, baseball is about pitching and defense.
Well, this is, pitch to contact is a concept that, it doesn't, from a fan perspective, no, not me, any kind of game, but from a general fan perspective, they want to see a lot of strikeouts or a lot of home runs, stuff like this. But put yourself in a player position, because if you're pitching to contact, if you're an infielder or an outfielder, you're loving this because you're in the game,
right.
Every at bat. That ball is just getting sprayed everywhere. So I absolutely love it.
This is the kind of and Trevor, I don't know what Trevor's going to do after this year. He was a senior and their season was over, but he had 34 strikeouts in almost 50 innings. So that he was a kind of pitch to contact kind of guy as it was. His defense pretty good. They did play on a turf field at Penn. They play at a turf field at home at Northridge, so they get the true hops, and that helped him. And then,
Well, and as a coach, you got to love those pitch to contact guys.
Running catches by outfielders.
Yeah. Well, as a coach, you got to love those pitch to contact guys, when you've got the defense to back it up, because like you said, Steve, 61 pitches in a complete game. That's seldom
right. I
heard
mean,
of.
you love the strikeouts, and those 16 strikeout games are awesome. But if you threw, that's at least.
Well, if you throw 16 strikeouts, you'd be hard pressed to get under 100.
That's
for
48
sure.
pitches right there. If you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you only get so many pitches to throw, so.
Let's move over to Fishers. Now, speaking of, here's a different style for sure. If you've seen Joey Wilmoth pitch this year, I've seen him pitch twice. And if you think of now, he doesn't have the control issues like the movie Wild Thing, or the movie where they brought in the Wild Thing throwing 100 miles per hour and it's just going all over the place. Wilmoth doesn't have that kind of control issues, but man, it's like he's shooting grease BBs out of a gun. I mean, they are just firing in there, every one of them over 90, right there around 90 plus. And he came in versus Carmel in that semifinal game, same game that I showed you that relay of. He came in, so you can't give him a complete game, but he came in relief in the first inning and ended up pitching all 7 innings and had 13 strikeouts versus Carmel. And Carmel was one of those teams I said that kind of a dark horse that could actually make a run and win it because they had a really interesting resume.
And when I look at the numbers here, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Matt Cherry was trying to maybe throw his 1B, so to speak, in a game like this, and then he realized right off the bat that he didn't have it, so he brings in, Wilmoth, who comes in obviously and does what he does here, as you can see with his numbers, and that's something that you see a lot in the tournament. Sometimes as a coach, you're in a position where you have to sort of take a chance, but early on you got to have both guys ready at the outset of the game, because if something goes wrong right away, you got to go to your pen. You get the other kid out, you save him for another game. You use this kid in this case here for Fishers, and for Matt Cherry, it paid off. Wilmoth with a great performance.
Well, and speaking of just great coaches, Coach Cherry is as good as they get. And they, I've the few times I've seen him now watching this game when he's in a long roll, he's more poised and things like that. But if you ever see him come in a relief role, I mean, he's grunting every pitch, and he is it's like a true closer. So it shows you his versatility on this. Just a great performance for sure. Let's go to Lawrence North, and Jake, his coaching center, Jake Winsenreed, he just continues to rake. He went 3 for 4 with 2 big flies versus Ben Davis, and this was his 3rd straight game with a home run. He's got 9 on the year. Just a great year this kid has had for sure. And then going from there to University, who just got beat this week, but Grayson Knight, another kid who's put together a great year. 5.5 2/3 of an inning, pitched 10 Ks in an 11-1 win versus Speedway. And we talked about this kid this week. 2 just stellar performances this week. He starts off the tournament in round 1 with a 10K, 0 walks, no hitter versus Prairie Heights. He follows that up in his next outing with 16 strikeouts today in the title game versus a tough Westview. These teams, what a great rivalry, but one of those fun rivalries, this up there in the Northeast Corner Conference. And I think it'll, with Coach Ron and Coach Kaufman up there, I think it's a rivalry that you're going to see for a while. But just what a good performance by Alec Hirschberger. I also mentioned this guy earlier, Nick Wiley, Mooresville, had 2 big flies. That's number 12 and 13 versus Franklin Community. He is currently leading the state in home runs. As a matter of fact, we talked early on in the season, Steve, and one of the best recruiting classes of all colleges in Indiana, ironically, is Indiana Wesleyan. And they got this kid right here. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Coach Benjamin, who was at the game. and I was talking to him, and I didn't know that Wiley had committed to Indiana Wesleyan, but man, they've got a stud right there. And even Coach Benjamin, he said, I don't know if I'm going to use him as a pitcher or not. Maybe he'll just be a Shohei Ohtani and do both, because he can legitimately do both, and just a big, strong kid too. He's about 6'2" around there. Just a couple announcements here before we wrap things up. First of all, a quick reminder that the BAI-9 is going to be announced after state finals. You're saying, what is the BAI-9? That is the Baseball Across Indiana top 9 players in the state as we see them. Any class, any position, top 9 players in the state. And coaches, make sure you get a hold of me. We've got a lot of people on our radar, but we don't want to miss anybody. This is the inaugural season of the BAI-9, and they're all getting one of those bats right there with their name engraved on it. It says the BAI-9. And so coaches, again, make sure you get a hold of us. We want to make sure that everybody is considered for this inaugural award of the BAI-9. Another quick announcement. I mentioned Coach Benjamin, excuse me, and this coming June 22nd, the Baseball Across Indiana will be our first ever game that we're actually going to broadcast. We're getting into the broadcasting game. We're starting out with the Futures game, which is going to be held at Indiana Wesleyan. Just a great field there in Marion, Indiana, northeast of Indianapolis. Just a great stadium. Coach Benjamin's a great guy. We've got this planned out. I talked to Coach Benjamin a couple times. Matter of fact, I was playing around with our setup here today. This will be our first game, and you know me, if I'm behind it, it's not going to be perfect, but this is baseball, right? We're going to have a few errors, and nobody has more than I do. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. I guarantee I'm not going to do it as good as Coach Jennings here, but that's June 22nd, IHSBCA Futures game at Indiana Wesleyan, and we're going to be hosting the broadcast, and just stay tuned for more information on that. We have some coaches that they're retiring, and we wanted to mention them real quick. I got a picture of one of them right here. Coach Lee Selvey of Jay County retires after 34 years. He also had 500 wins. A couple other coaches that we talked about who are moving on to different phases of their career. Matt Brumbaugh of Northrop, Ryan Bridges of Hanover Central that Brian talked about, and he was a player for Coach Jennings. And then Jack Rupley of Manchester is also moving on. Brian, I know you probably know some of these guys, Lee Selvey, as well as Matt Brumbaugh of Northrop, Ryan Bridges of Hanover Central, and Jack Rupley of Manchester, and yourself. Putting your name into the list of coaches who are moving on to different phases in their careers. Tell me any thoughts on these guys right here.
Well, the thing I think that the thing about it is, these guys, baseball is the hardest sport to coach because it's in the toughest season to coach in the state of Indiana because of the weather. And baseball is a different kind of game. You take care of your own facility. If you fight the weather. Your schedule has to be extremely flexible. It's a strain on families. It really is. People don't understand the toughness it is for the families. And for these guys to do what they have done for the number of years that they have done it, and they've dedicated themselves to their communities, to their programs, to their teams. You're looking at Lee's track record right here, 34 wins, 34 years, 526 wins, over 800 games coached, 7 sectional championships. He's done so much for his program, for his community. And I think that that's the underlying factor that sometimes people don't really understand or comprehend, the amount of time that it takes and the amount of years that and the grinding that it takes on a person to do what he has done. And to these guys, I take my hat off to them all. Baseball coaching in Indiana is in good hands. There's great coaches in the state of Indiana. There's great programs in the state of Indiana. There's great players in the state of Indiana. Baseball in Indiana is in good shape in that aspect, no question.
Well, and maybe to reiterate that, let's move on to our final out as we wrap things up. And Coach, I want to have you kind of reiterate that as we look at your coaching career, starting back in 1999, I believe you said it was.
Yep.
You played at Whiting, graduated from Whiting. You've seen baseball evolve. You've coached kids that have made it. With Cody Hosey, just one example. That's a kid that hadn't got his cup of coffee yet, but he is on his way to the bigs. How have you seen baseball evolve, and maybe what are some of the things that you've liked on how it's evolved, and what are some of the things that maybe baseball needs to step back on, or what's kind of maybe a loaded question, I apologize, but as we wrap things up for a final out, Coach, tell me about where baseball's been as you see it, and your thoughts on how it's going forward.
Well, I think baseball's in great hands with the leadership that we have in the state of Indiana with the IHSAA. Robert Falkins heads up baseball. He's done a great job promoting the sport. He's been very flexible. He's been very much easy to work with the association. Our coaches association, led by Brian Abbott, the executive director, he has a great vision for what he wants the game to be. They talk about it being a gentleman's game. Brian is a gentleman. Brian respects the game. Brian respects the history of the game, the passion for the game. He's a baseball guy. I think we have outstanding coaches in the state of Indiana. We have coaches who work extremely hard at the game. The game is elevated. I think a lot of it has to do with travel ball, with the off-season workout programs, with weightlifting, with all the facets that the kids have available to them now. They're outstanding players, and it's going to continue. You look at a kid like Max Clark. We had a chance to play against Max this year. And, I don't care about the kind of baseball player he is. I just looked at his body and his physique and the way these kids dedicate themselves to the offseason about getting stronger, getting faster, getting bigger. The kids nowadays, they look like men. They don't look like high school kids like they did 20 years ago. So I think the game in that aspect is in great shape. I think some of the things that we need to get better with is we need to find a way to have the things that we cannot control somehow tweaked, figured out, whatever the case is. We've got to find a way to solve the umpire crisis. Not having umpires in the state of Indiana is killing lower level baseball. Our JV baseball this year was only able to play less than 10 games because we didn't have umpires. That's not a criticism of the umpires whatsoever. It's just the facts. You look at the lack of umpires in the state of Indiana. You're fighting the weather. I think we need to consider moving the start of the season back to April the 1st and playing into the last weekend in June. I know it fights graduation. I understand the IHSAA has to get their plans ready for the fall, but I think it's something that we need to look at, whether we play a state championship the final weekend in June, and then they have that moratorium week off the next week. I don't know what the answer is, but I think we need to figure out a way to combat that. I'm not going to sit here and say, some people have made the statement, move football to the spring, baseball to the fall. That's not logical because of the connection with college football. But we need to figure out some kind of a way to handle the weather situation that we're running up against. And I know we can't control it, but we got to give ourselves a better opportunity maybe to try to find a way to combat it a little bit. I think the kids need to become more instinctive with the game. They have the physical aspects of the game down tremendously, but they seem as a whole, I see a lot of lacking in the instincts for the game, the base running instincts, the ability to adjust on the run, that sort of thing. I think that there's something from that end that they need to do, and maybe that comes with not playing anything but organized ball when they're young anymore. I think that's something that needs to sort of maybe be looked at somehow. How you do it, I don't know. But it just seems like that's been a change in the game over the last 20 years. And I think really the biggest thing is I think the lower levels, the travel ball group, need to understand that these are little kids. Don't let them play 60, 70, 80 games a year, because I've seen kids' arms blow out. I've seen kids burn out. I've seen kids give up the game of baseball because they played so much at a lower level. Let them be kids. Let these kids be kids. Let them learn to love the game like I learned to love the game growing up, like you learned to love the game, like Steve learned to love the game. And the coaches. We have all these resources at our exposure as coaches, but I think when they come up as young guys, the parents, the travel ball coaches, the little league coaches, and I'm talking 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those parents need to understand their place in the game. They're not trying to get college scholarships to a 10-year-old. You're trying to give them an opportunity to love the game, and when they get to the high school level, then you worry about the college scholarships. That's my thoughts.
Coach, a lot of respect for those thoughts. Best wishes in this next phase of your career. And I think baseball is in good hands because for so many years it's got good men like you in the leadership roles, like you were talking about, Brian Abbott. And we're loaded with people like yourself across the state who are just have a great vision of the value that baseball provides. Folks, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
we will
Coach.
see you next week
Thank you,
on
guys.
This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. Take care.